It is a dimension as vast as space, and as timeless as infinity. It is the middle ground between light and shadow, between science and superstition, and it lies between the pit of man's fears and the summit of his knowledge. This is the dimension of imagination. It is an area which we call shots. Hey guys. So this one's going to be a little bit weird. It's going to be a solo episode of Shots. I figure this will have to happen from time to time. I'll play a game that Todd didn't, or vice versa, and we'd still find it worthy of an episode of Shots, just without the other person. So, my goal is to take a few minutes and effectively describe this game to you all by myself. Hopefully you like hearing my voice, because this is a special game that deserves to be talked about. It's called Tacoma. Oh, and don't worry, I'm not going to spoil anything. Tacoma is the latest game from developer Fulbright, an indie dev made up of BioShock alumni. They are responsible for the fantastic Minerva's Den DLC for BioShock 2, as well as their first game, 2013's Gone Home. And like Gone Home before it, Tacoma is a first-person narrative exploration game. Some folks like to use a derogatory term like walking sim to describe narrative games. While Gone Home and Tacoma are different in a lot of ways, one way in which they're alike is that they're both uniquely designed, innovative examples that have redefined their genre. That's kind of a big claim, but let me explain that a bit. You are Amy, a contractor hired by the Venturis Corporation to recover data from the derelict space station Tacoma. Your job is to recover both the station's AR data to learn about the fate of Tacoma's crew, and to retrieve the station's onboard AI, Odin. To say much more about the plot would spoil it, so what I really want to focus on is the interesting way Tacoma handles gameplay. Gone Home was all about, well, literally going home and piecing together the story of what happened before you arrived with characters that the player hadn't met yet, but the player character had. What's interesting about Tacoma, just on a base level, is that you're just a contractor. You're a temp worker. The Venturis Corporation has given you need-to-know information only, and you aren't necessarily meant to stick your nose where it doesn't belong. But as you're doing that job of recovering Tacoma's AR reading of the actions of the crew leading up to their death or disappearance or whatever, you're piecing together their story in turn. In other words, Gone Home and Tacoma tackle a very similar problem in very different ways, and from a narrative perspective, that's interesting, right? Tacoma's biggest differentiator is that you're given full control of the station's AR recordings as you recover them. You can rewind them, pause them, fast forward them, whatever. And that allows for a couple of things. Firstly, and maybe most importantly, it allows for a measure of player freedom and choice, right? You can take as long as you want to unpack this story. And in fact, that's where much of the meat of it is found. Any of the AR recordings can involve any and all of Tacoma's 6 crew members, and even as they walk away from the main conversation, you can, and are encouraged to, follow them and get more of their personal stories. In other words, you'll enter a room and you might see a meeting between 2 people, they might split away, and you might follow one of them to see where their story might be leading. But, as the player, you have the freedom to then rewind and follow the other and get that story too, or pause it and see maybe what's going on one of their personal desktops, and just further get more story. The game revels in that level of detail. That wrinkle is something that I've never personally played in a video game before, and it's what really makes Tacoma stand above its peers in terms of exploration design. It's literally designed by exploration. The player is earning narrative the more he or she chooses to explore it. You get what you give. Speaking of those crew members, I want to just briefly talk about the way this game deftly balances a diverse cast of believable, marginalized characters that don't feel forced or pandering like some pieces of fiction tend to. It never feels like Fulbright is checking off a list. There's a couple of married women. One of them isn't strictly a lesbian, maybe. There's a gay man, but it isn't played up in any way. He's a family man that loves his husband and their son. There's a straight couple as well, and they're given just as much texture as anybody else. Everybody's represented on equal human ground, and that's more refreshing to see than it probably should be. It's helped by fantastic vocal performances, including Carl Lumbia's Odin, who, fun fact, voiced CM Porter in Minerva's Den. Tacoma feels like Fulbright's natural evolution in many ways. It is Gone Home's older, more advanced brother, while still being a bit more larger scale, while still feeling intimate and human, while still not simply settling for being Gone Home in space. It respects your time by rewarding you for the time you put into it. I wouldn't dare spoil it, but the twist at the game's end is a moment that made me pump my fist in the air with just pure joy and elation. And while you might still get a semblance of that feeling if you had just rushed through the game without picking through the details and smelling all the roses, the reward is much sweeter if you do. The details are where Fulbright's games thrive, and I think that's what makes video games a special medium and a special art form, and I think that's what makes Tacoma a special video game. Oh, and I can't wrap this up without shouting out some of the development team. The wonderful writing and environmental storytelling from narrative designers like Steve Gaynor and Carla Zamanja. The tight, concise, hub-based level design from designers like Nina Freeman, who is one of my favorite developers, full stop. The most well-designed and detailed in-game junk from environment artist Kate Craig. The incredible sound design by Patrick Balthrop. If I'm forgetting to credit anybody on the team, I apologize, but all the same, if you're listening, thank you very much for making Tacoma. It's one of the year's very best. And thank you all for listening. I know it was only a couple of minutes. Just kind of wanted to give a quick sort of review and shout out Shots episode for this game that I liked a lot. And I hope you check it out. It came out on August 2nd, 2017. It retails for $19.99. It is currently available on Steam, PC, and Xbox One. And I hope you check it out. It's a really, really cool game. Thanks for listening, guys. Bye.